I want to start off by saying that I really don't want this to sound depressing, so try and not take it that way. But really, most of my life after sixth grade was the lowest I've ever been. I feel like not only the changes that happened to me were due to me reaching my teens, but with the additional stressor of COVID, it completely redeveloped my character. And not to say COVID sucked, because I quite enjoyed it, but it didn't matter what I enjoyed, because the effects were far greater than what I felt about it. I didn't realize how detrimental that time was until eighth grade came. I realized things had greatly changed from the time before we went into a pandemic. I was completely unable to hold a conversation with others, and largely didn't feel like I was ever obligated to. I had unhealthy habits and generally wasn't much better in terms of self care. I remember I had this super awful facial hair that made me insecure to lower my mask. During this time, I also jumped down a crazy rabbit hole where I was probably at the most judgmental moment in my life. I hated everyone for everything they did, and looking back, it was largely jealousy. I was jealous that they were able to hold on to their friends and make new ones so easily. And I was jealous that they were all the things I wanted to be, yet simultaneously I also hated them for it. I guess in many ways I was like Holden. I couldn't tolerate the views of others, and I was a big hypocrite when it came to certain things. It wasn't until around the end of ninth grade and towards the beginning of 10th grade that I was finally able to grasp onto my rediscovered feeling of empathy. Previously, I thought that people just didn't want to talk to me, and everybody else was a problem. What it really was me being a loser. I was so deluded, and I thought it was me against the world. Everyone hated me, and I was the only one who was reasonable. I knew something had to change, and something needed to change. Otherwise, I'd never get the dream I wanted to so badly during this time. I wanted the kind of friends you see in movies, the ones who went through everything together. And again, it wasn't until around ninth grade that I decided this. 10th grade was when I felt the beginning of a change, but didn't fully go into effect until this year. I was still doing the things I wanted to do in my previous years. I made friends and all that, but I was still feeling unfulfilled. In my junior year, I was confident I would go into my classes and genuinely try and talk to the people there. And for some classes it worked, and others it didn't. The difference between this year and all the others was that I was able to make something stick, and for a majority of my classes too. It went from having to consciously be thinking about talking to eventually being able to talk to people I've never met before on the spot and talk in a way that felt real. Not like school talk, but real actual speech where people listened and talked to each other. I especially felt that in this class, where it was so highly encouraged to speak to each other, and before the things like nominations and having to voice your acknowledgement for someone, I never felt like I actually had any reason to talk, because I never knew that people actually appreciated what I had to say. And much like Holden, it wasn't until I was faced with people who wanted to talk to me that I accepted that I was able to make more out of what I had, and although there are still some lingering effects, really just being the death of my work ethic, I can confidently say that this year has been one of the most fun and fulfilling years I've ever had in terms of school. I was always super into the pessimistic side, until I realized that despite how cheesy it could sound, life really is what you make of it. And much like some of the other characters we read about, like Tim and Holden, change is something that happens slowly. It can't be forced, and everything you do, despite how little you think it is, affects you to a much greater degree than you'd ever think. Overall, what I'm trying to get across is that for things to change, you absolutely need to understand what your goals are, because really, working towards a set goal is so much easier than wandering around aimlessly, hoping that someone will come and put you on their shoulder and do everything for you. And again, the real message here is that life is exactly what you make of it.